and welcome to a short introduction video for the Samples to Knowledge 2025 multiplexing workshop at the La Jolla Institute. I'd like to just give you guys a little bit of information to get set up and make sure that everyone who's coming in person, make sure to bring a mouse. Start with, go to the GitHub page and go ahead and take a look around. You'll see a bunch of session options, and those are going to be what we're going to go through for a lot of the different interactive parts of the course. Also get some information there on how to download QPath, download some data folders, and there's some further setup with different plugins and such. If you have any questions, there'll be an ImageSC forum link both on the GitHub page and at the bottom of this video. And of course, there's some little things at the end to browse through if you want some extra reading. All right, QPath at the workshop. Please make sure you have it installed and set up before we get started on the first day. I know security is a major issue right now. Places like hospitals and companies, if they're if it's their laptop, they often have some pretty stringent security settings to keep you from getting dangerous files. But we need you to be able to get some files. We'll have script updates, plugins, images, the software itself. So please make sure you can get all of those things before you get to the workshop, because the installation itself may require admin access. We've had various laptops not able to get internet access when it's not the local internet or the company internet, and have things like USB ports disabled and things like that. So just make sure you get as many things set up as possible while you still have access to someone who might have admin access to your laptop. And also make sure, if you can, to have either internet access or USB port access so that you can follow along during the workshop. And all this security stuff is understandable, but as an open source project, the QPath team doesn't have the time or resources to make sure everything is validated for both Windows and Mac and so on. This is specifically about the Macs here, but PCs have the same kind of warning message that QPath is not recognized. So make sure you can get past that before we get started. If you have any errors during the setup after installation, you'll see a little area here on the upper right hand corner that has both context help, which will warn you if something is weird or maybe it's not non-standard. So one of the main things you'll see is if you have this slider here, it changes the opacity of objects. So you get a little warning saying that the opacity slider is 0, so people aren't confused if they can't see any objects in their image. But if you do get any errors while setting things up, go ahead and share those on the ImageSC forum so we can have some idea of what's going on. It's good if you make a copy of the log. So if you go ahead and open up that error button, you'll see something like this or like this. And if you select several of those entries, whichever one seems relevant, or you can use Control-A to select all of the entries, you can then copy with either the button or Control-C and paste those into an ImageSC forum post, and we'll have some better idea of how to help you. Finally, if you don't see the errors interface on your screen, sometimes either the QPath window or the laptop screen itself is a little too small or low resolution to show everything at once. You might see these two little bars or arrows right here, and that will lead to the rest of the interface. Kind of drops down there. All right, so QPath is great because it's open source, makes sharing easy between different facilities, different institutions, runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux. That's all well and good, but the Linux and Mac systems may require a few extra steps, so please read the installation instructions. I'll go over a little bit of information here, but mostly go for the read the docs instructions. And once you have QPath installed, you can always go to the help documentation, which will take you to that read the docs site. The installation for Windows, you'll frequently see something like this if it's the first time setting up QPath on your system. You'll need to click on the More Info, which is kind of hidden in small text right here, and then that should give you the Run Anyway option if you have admin access, which is why we encourage you to make sure you get this all installed while you still have access to an admin potentially. All right. On the Mac, you'll often see something like this. These images happen to be from an M1 Silicon Mac, but they'll look a little different, but ideally the same kind of steps should usually get you through things. So Open Anyway is available here because this person had admin access, but it may not show up. So you may need to go to privacy and security, and you'll see that there was a recent folder that were program that was blocked, and need to be able to click Open Anyway, and then you'll probably need to have admin access in order to get that set up. So again, get started early. Make sure this is all set up before you arrive. All right, I don't have anything for Linux really because I haven't installed it on Linux in quite a while. One of the main issues there is just with OpenSlide, the OpenSlide installation, which is one of the viewers. We won't be using it for any of the images in this project. I think everything here opens with bioformats. So really shouldn't be too many issues, but if you do have any problems, post on the ImageSC forum again. All right, post installation of QPath, make sure you set up Deep Java library, instance seg, and install the Warpy extension. All of those instructions are on the GitHub README. Once you arrive at Loy Institute, so this is kind of an overview. The entrance is on the north side. This is usually where people will park, but that may, be subject to change. So read your emails on that. What it looks like though is this, which confused me a little bit the first time I showed up. So I just wanted to give everyone kind of a view of what it looks like. And there's a card reader, I think, at the entrance, so you may have to wait to be let in. All right. During the workshop, we're going to be throwing a lot of information at you fairly fast, so I wanted to go through some of the different terminology that we're going to be using when we're actually discussing QPath and the associated information for multiplex analysis. So QPath is the software that we're going to be using for viewing, annotating, and performing the image analysis. Image analysis consists of, put some images in, get some data out, and that starts with the images and their pixel values. So you'll take those images and then you'll process them in some sort of way to generate either cells or some kind of detection, usually within some kind of an area like an annotation, whole tissue annotation, something like that, which then we're going to generate some measurements for each of those objects and eventually export it to a file. The project is the folder with a set of files that are considered, a project by the user, and you analyze them all as a group. So the folder itself is going to contain classifiers, data folder, which is going to be all of the different actual objects you create for each image. That might be the tissue outline or a bunch of cells or what have you. And there'll also be scripts and resources, which we'll go into during the course of the workshop. The project.qbproj file is the, let's say, the text file that holds everything together, so that will point to both the current location of the images and the data file that they're associated with to just kind of tie everything together. Next, the images. Those can be stored either in the project or more frequently externally to the project folder, but the project file will associate these particular images with whatever objects and data you create within QPath. And finally, the objects are usually drawn or created as overlays on the image. It can be done manually or automatically. This is a tissue detection here and a manual rectangle drawn on top of that. So each of the objects consists of some sort of an ROI that just locates where the object is, and then some data in terms of the measurements, the name, the classification you give it, things like that. And that will look something like this within QPath. So the primary things I wanted to get you to take away from this is that QPath is the software that we're using. The project, when we refer to it, is pretty much that folder with a set of files or images and all the associated data that goes with it. The images are going to be the pixels and pixel values that we use to generate objects. And those objects are each going to have an ROI, which is kind of the area and location, and then some data associated with it. All right, quick introduction to the interface. Consists of three main parts. You've got your menu options and a variety of tools here at the top. You've got the viewer, so this is just referred to as the viewer in QPath, and then a set of tabs off to the left. So the toolbars and such, aside from, we'll go through the menu options as we use them within QPath, but the main ones you want to kind of draw your attention to are drawing and movement here on the left, brightness and contrast we're going to spend quite a bit of time going into and using, And then finally the object visualization right over here. So that's your turning your annotations on and off, whether or not you fill them in, turning cells on and off, things like that. The tabs themselves, so there's going to be like the project tab, which shows all of the images you currently have in the project. You can double click on those to change from image to image. You can also right click on those to see a bunch of context menu options to like look at where the file or image data or whatever is from. There's also the annotations tab, which will have your list of classifications and any larger annotation objects and a set of measurements near the bottom. And the image tab is another one that's kind of important. It'll show you your current image, but also importantly, it'll show you your pixel type, or at least how it's being interpreted. Also the size of the image and your pixel width and pixel height. You really want to make sure when you're starting a new project with images, maybe from a new scanner or something like that, that all of your data is being read in correctly, and that's done in the image tab. All right. Finally, the viewer is the mains area that we'll be looking at, and it's largely controlled through that brightness and contrast menu that I mentioned before. So here's where we'll be turning on all the different channels, turning them off, and setting the minimum and maximum values for the contrast and brightness. So again, install ahead of time. Make sure you can access those GitHub notebooks. See the link in the description. Install QPath and set up the extensions. And go ahead and create a project and add images that you can download. Again, the links are in the GitHub notebooks. So if you want to do any other in-depth practice with QPath, you can follow along with the QPath multiplex analysis YouTube video series, which I will also put in the links below. Look forward to seeing everyone there.